Welcome to another episode of Rimshots for Sean right here on the Rock Rage Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And we have another, we don't have a name for this yet, Matt. We're trying to come up with something. Right now we're calling it the Curtain Call Corner. Matt Pogue from Simple Stone, how are you? All the way from Sydney, Australia, so thank you.
Good morning. Good morning.
So welcome. And Brian sent me your material, and my first thought was, your singer has a bit of a Canadian tone to his voice. Do you guys have any Canadian influences by any chance? Because in Canada, our singers tend to be the higher part of the range, the rock guys, and just an observation.
Yeah, look, I like some of the Canadian bands. I'm a Nickelback fan,
Yep.
but I'm the singer. The whole reason I kind of aim for that pitch is just to be commercially acceptable and, to kind of get that kind of rock edge across, because I don't talk anywhere up there, man,
Well, I was just about to say that. I mean, like your voice is kind of in the lower register where I am. So obviously you've done some work to get there.
Yes. Thank you for noticing.
Well, I'm having grown up in a part of the world where singers are not readily available sometimes. I grew up listening to, Van Halen and Motley Crue and stuff like that. Anytime you could find a singer with range, Robert Plant, those types of things. And we could never find singers with range, so I pick up on it right away. And you do it very well. I mean, it's I can tell that you're not going to go out there and be a one and done kind of guy, right? What is it that you do or that you've done to get your voice to that point?
Yeah, so I was trained as a classical singer. And look, realistically, every night before we go on, it's a lot of heavy lifting. It's a lot of warm-ups. I've got to keep myself in check, especially when we're on the road and there's, not a lot of green room space,
Right.
I've got to actually go and actively find a quiet space for an hour and just do my warm-ups, get into it, get my body working. Realistically through the training, I learned a lot about body dynamics and where notes are actually pitched from, so yeah, I've got to really stick to a hardcore discipline with all that sort of stuff. So,
I like what you're saying there because, pardon me, I find in this day and age you have everything from, and I guess the true term of professional is you get paid to do something, right? But
100%.
Right, but to me, it's a broader explanation. And to me, professional comes with experience. It comes with experiences. Some track records, some miles. So what you're saying is something that a lot of people in this day and age are not doing. They're not warming up. They're not doing the work. Somebody says, "You sound good. You should go and play in a band." Next thing you know, they're playing shows.
Yeah. I actually agree with everything you've just said. When we take a show on the road, we are just as good as we are in a studio. I think we reproduce our recorded material live really, really well. A lot of effort goes into that, and we pride ourselves on that. So, that'd be foolish of me to step up to a microphone and not have it, So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You've got to work hard at it, and we are getting paid, and we are entertainers, and it's our job to replicate our recorded work. So we take that really seriously, Sean, to be honest. I guess that's why we're,
I love that you're saying that, because I'll give you an example. There was a band that played around here. And when I say around here, I won't, if I said exactly where, I'd give them away, but they were paid a pretty good amount of money. And I saw some video, and one of their people were up there basically wearing sandals and socks on stage. And I'm like, why don't you just go and slap every person in the face that came to see you play? Like, you clearly don't care about, maybe if that's the look, great. But just to me, it's just, oh my God, you got to, look good, play good sort of thing, right?
Yeah. It's super important, man. I always sort of describe it to people as I pull a costume on, I zip it from top to bottom. You put on the rock vibe, you wear the appropriate sort of stuff. You've got a guitar that matches, for me anyway,
Yeah.
Part of the look and part of the look is part of the sound. As I say, you're an entertainer. Get up there and do your thing, but do it right. So,
love that. I always say this when I ask this question, and I'll say it. People will get tired of me saying it, but I do it for a reason. And I hate the compare game. I hate when somebody says this band sounds like that band or that sounds like this band. But part of what I'm doing with Curtain Call is I'm trying to introduce my audience to, their artists who they might not have heard before. So in order to reel them in, I ask, okay, well, if you were to do a comparison on who you sound like, who might you guys sound like? I have, after hearing your material, I have a couple of thoughts of my own, but who would you say?
Well, this is always interesting, man, because we get a lot of Faith No More references, which I still to this day don't get, but people pick it up in the probably in my vocal sound.
Yeah, I can see that.
Look, who do we sound like? I don't know who we sound like. We go for the whole kind of 90s heavy rock kind of sound, I guess. Sorry, Sean, you just disappeared there for a second, man.
No, I just had a call on my phone. Sometimes that happens. Right. I got the Nickelback thing right away.
Did you? Right.
Not necessarily the vocals, but the music. Because Nickelback, to me, some of their stuff kind of reminds me of, and when I say this, people go, you're out to lunch. But they have they have a Kiss, AC/DC kind of, the power chord chugging, crunchy. And say what you want about Nickelback. Some people love them, some people hate them. But, I mean, they're very catchy tunes, right? I get that reference right away.
And I love their B-side stuff. The stuff on the back end of their records is really heavy. I dig it,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because I'm going to go to another question then here. And then the whole question is around streaming because, it's such a topic now. And I had a conversation with somebody the other day about how one of my favorite albums when I was growing up was Slippery When Wet by Bon Jovi. I like the second side more than I like the first side. All the first side had the hits. If it hadn't been in the land of Spotify, I probably never would have discovered the second side because I only would have went and looked for the hits. So what's your take on that? You mentioned deep cuts by a band. I'd love to get your take on that.
I think, for me, I dig the heavier stuff. I dig the heavier groove sort of stuff, right? But I think you've got to be commercially accepted to a point. And when I say that, a lot of people don't like that term, but what I mean is you've got to have hooks, you've got to have singles, you've got to have stuff that sticks in people's heads, right? You've got to be almost identifiable straight away. So by the time you've written your songs and people are hitting play on whatever streaming platform or on CD or whatever, the first and second song have got to grab them in some way. So people have such short attention spans. And that's not a criticism. It's just because there's so much material out there. You've got to grab them straight away. And something that's identifiable and something that's catchy is super, super important. So we do that. We try and do that in as many songs as possible. But then we've got our heavier riffing. We've got our interesting or our interests bleeding into other parts of the songs. So I think having a hook is significantly important. I think then, going to the back end of the record, you can't, if you're putting out a CD or putting out a full album, you can't have, 10 or 11 singles. We'd all like to think we could, but there's going to be influences all the way through, or different influences all the way through the album. So I think, it's got to be well-rounded. And I think, if people are listening to a full album, they'll find things that they like,
Yeah, and people's attention spans being what they are today, the term waterfall release has been, I'm going to say it's been the term of 2024 because, artists that I've worked with and recorded with and what have you, that's how, we've chose to do it just because you can put an awful lot of bite into one song and let it go for 2 or 3 months and do another one. And then at the end of it all, release the whole thing. What's your strategy been? What have you guys been doing?
Well, yeah. So when we dropped Through This Dark, latest record, we initially released it 2 singles. So one single, couple of months out, and then the second single on the release of the album. And then a couple of singles every sort of few months from then on in. we then kind of decided that maybe that's, maybe that's a lot of information for people to process.
Right.
So we started toying around with, a single and a B-side every couple of months. But you know what, Sean, I honestly don't know what the right thing to do is, I think you've just got to put your material out there in the best way that you can and hope that somebody grabs some of it, I know it's probably not as definitive as what you wanted, but it's a reality because it's a moving market, and for us, we've just got to be seen, and we've got to be put our music out there in any way that we can, really. If there's a right way to it, Sean, in this day and age, I'd love to hear it.
The answer is perfect. And I'll tell you why, because I came to a realization probably in November that, I was reading this thing and Gene Simmons was saying, the audience determines your success. And I kind of don't believe that to be the case now, because I think what is taking place is that, especially when this little tidbit came out that one of the streaming services was creating fake bands to stream to try to do some things. And so I think the powers that be and the majors and those guys are the ones that are determining the success of everybody else. I don't think it's the audience. The audience is being force-fed stuff that they're biting on.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And absolutely.
Case, isn't it?
Well, right. And so it's one of those things where I really think now more than ever, you just got to do your thing. If it sticks, great. If it doesn't, hey, just do it because you want to do it first.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we know how to do anything else other than to hang it out and just do us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of shows and show cycle and stuff, I mean, I've talked to a number of people from the great down under there, and it sounds like that the scene down there is very cool. But what I hear from a lot of people is geography. I guess similar to Canada. I mean, you're kind of a lot of space between places and stuff. What's it like being on the road there and playing?
Yeah, well, I reckon it's similar, man. There's a lot of Ks, there's a lot of miles between gigs, and a local scene. I just sort of think that the local scenes can become really exhausting for bands, especially in the volume of shows that you want to try and play.
Right.
So we get out on the road and we tour the country, get in and out of country towns, meet new faces everywhere we go, sort of put in the hard yards, I guess, we do that in the back of a truck, and we load all our gear in, load all our bags in, sleep wherever we can, basically spend the weekends driving away to gigs. We can drive, 4 hours between a show. That's not a big deal for us,
Well, I tell you, so it was funny. I had a friend of mine that was like, he did a post and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm playing like a bunch of shows in a row." And, clearly he had a day job. And so, he was complaining about it. And I played a show at New Year's that was about 2.5 hours away from where I live. I drove home that night.
That's a local show.
Well, pretty much. But
yeah.
So I drove the 2.5 hours, played the show, drove back, slept 4 hours, drove 4 hours to another show, and drove back the same day. And he's like, "You're crazy." It's like, well, if I want to play and we really want to play and build a market, that's what you have to do. It's not at my convenience, right? What would you say to somebody that, talks to you and I and says, "You guys are crazy for putting so many miles on a vehicle and doing that"?
Well, I just think that's the business, and if you're not going to do it, then you're not doing it.
Get out of it. Yeah, you're playing band. Yeah. I agree.
I mean, you can play your local city in Australia, like between Sydney and Melbourne, it's a 10-hour drive, right? So, and there's a lot of landscape between them, but between major cities, it's a long way. And then from Sydney to Brisbane, it's probably 12 hours drive. And that's just in one direction. That's, you got to count your stops and all that sort of stuff. So, but to play just major cities, it's basically impossible to do that without getting on the road, without traveling. So we get booked in a show somewhere that might be 3-4 hours away, and then we'll do another run that's a couple of hours away from that, and then come back. So I think you got to. If you're just playing your local city over and over, I think you'll exhaust yourself, and you're also limiting your your crowd or your your response essentially, to one local area. And I think you've got to get beyond that. Getting on the road is what musicians do. And I've been doing it for nearly 30 years, and it's just life,
Yeah.
It takes its toll, but it's also good fun, man. Party in a new town.
Absolutely. So, hey, we're coming up on that magic number here. So, last question I'll pose to you, my viewers, my listeners, where are they going to find out about you guys, get your music, all that wonderful and wacky stuff?
Yeah. So, Simple Stone Band is our email address.com. You'll find us on all socials. You'll find us on, Instagram and Facebook and the like. Type Simple Stone into Google, into your search engine, and you'll find just about everything you need to find. And when you do, turn it up loud, give us a thumbs, like us.
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
I want to thank you for doing this, man. I know you're up late, my friend, and let's stay in touch, and best of 2025.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us, Sean.
We're back on Rim Shots after this.